right, angles. Angles are two dimensions. So underneath angles, write two dimensions. And for our definition, it's the intersection of two rays that share an endpoint. And in parentheses, put opposite rays are also angles. Right? And we'll talk about what kind of angles those are. So anytime we have any two rays that intersect and share an endpoint, that's going to be an angle. Vertex, we're going to use one diagram for the two words, the two terms, angle and vertex, because they go together. Right? So we'll talk about the definitions and then the diagram and the naming. So you could just use both boxes for the diagram and both boxes for the naming. Vertex has 0 dimensions. It's the common endpoint two rays share in an angle. All right, so for instance, here we have rays BC and ray BA intersecting at point B to create our angle. And I could call this, and we'll talk about the 4 ways we can name this angle. Right? But we could, 2 of the ways are angle CBA or ABC. All right, so we have our definitions. We have our dimensions for each of those terms. Let's draw one diagram. All right, so draw the diagram that you see. Right? So we have our angle there. We have those 2 rays that are intersecting. Right? Our vertex is at point B. Right? And that little b there is referring to the measure of our angle. The sides of the angles are called arms. Right, so naming angles, we can use 3 letters or we can use the vertex. I'm trying to read my handwriting. So angle CBA, angle ABC, angle B. And so next to angle B, right, if there's only one angle shown. Right, so if I'm looking somehow my y, there we go, now we can see the y. So if it would be confusing, if I named it with 1 point, then don't do that. So here there's only one angle B. But what if I had 4 angles and they were all meeting at angle B? Well, then I don't know which angle we're talking about. So in that case, then we want to use 3 letters. When we name an angle, the vertex is always written in the middle. Make sure you add that to naming. Right? So you want all of that by naming. And that will cover vertex and angle and vertex. Okay. And the vertex, of course, is just a point. And it's a point where the 2 rays intersect. Let's look at types of angles. Oh, actually, parts of angles, then types of angles. So the corner point of an angle is called the vertex. The 2 straight sides are called arms. And the angle is the amount of turn between each arm. Right? And you have that on your diagram, so you don't have to write anything down here. Now let's talk about the different types of angles. So an angle is the intersection of 2 rays with a common endpoint. It may look like any of the following. So I have spaces in your notes for each of these. Right? And the dimensions, all of them are going to be 2 dimensions except for the straight angle. Right? So next to acute angle, write in 2 dimensions. The definition, it's an angle which measures less than 90 degrees. Right? Oh, here, let me erase this point here. We'll talk about that, but let me erase that right now. All right, so here for our diagram, this would be the acute angle. All right, so and there's no naming for this part. We named it with the angle part, with the angle definition. So you just need to write in the definition and the diagram. Next, we have the right angle. The right angle definition, any angle which measures exactly 90 degrees. And don't forget to write it as 2 dimensions. If you see an angle and it has a box in it, the box is equal to right angle, which means 90 degrees. Right? Add this to your notes as well as the diagram. So this is the right angle. the obtuse angle. It is also 2 dimensions. And definition, any angle which measures more than 90, less than 180. Another way you could write that is like this. Either way is fine with me. Right? It's more than 90, but it's less than 180. Here we have a diagram of our obtuse angle. Those 3 you probably remember from another class, but maybe you don't know these next 2. So our next angle is called the straight angle. It measures 180 degrees, exactly 180 degrees. Add to your notes that 2 opposite rays create a straight angle. It is 1 dimension because a straight angle is a line. 180 degrees. Here's the diagram for the straight angle. And finally, the angle you probably never heard of, it's the reflex angle. So it's an angle that measures less than 180, measures more than 180, but less than 360 degrees. My mouth's getting tongue-tied. You can also write it like this. That would be fine as well. Either way to define it would be fine with me. Here we have our reflex angle. Now the reflex angle is referring to this angle here, right? The one outside. So technically, when we drew the other angles, there was also a reflex angle on the other side. Right? So this would be our reflex angle. So this here is a reflex angle. The other angle is an obtuse angle. This is a reflex angle. The other angle is the acute angle. So anytime you draw an angle, you've got 2 angles. The acute or obtuse or right and the reflex angle. Except for the straight angle. Either way, it's 180 degrees. You just got 2 straight angles there. All right? So there's our different types of angles. And that's going to end this whole Nearpod lesson, because now you can stop and do the whiteboard practice. All right? So before you go on to any more of our Nearpod lessons, make sure you complete the whiteboard practice. All right? And that's in Schoology. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.